This show is brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast.
Robots Radio presents The Elder Scrolls Lorecast.
Welcome to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, a place where the Elder Scrolls community can come together to discuss the boundaries of our knowledge about the universe of the Elder Scrolls. I'm really digging this spooky music. We've had it for the last few episodes.
I like it.
It's cool.
I'm a fan.
Like, that's one of my favorite parts about these games. It's like the spoopy stuff. Welcome back to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. I'm your host, Tom, or Robots, and I'm here with my co-host, Lotus of Doom, the most doomed of Lotuses. It's true. It is true. How are you doing, Lotus? How are things?
I'm less doomed, actually. I'm less doomed than normal, so.
That's because you completed Arena recently.
I did. Yes, I managed to finally complete Arena yesterday on a surprisingly short stream. So after months and hours of getting destroyed, I managed to beat Jaeger Tharn, and it was great.
That is awesome.
Saved Uriel Septim the 7th, which when we had that episode talking about kind of like little weirdnesses about Arena, that is a typo. It is not Uriel Septim the 4th. It absolutely is the 7th because he's mentioned more than the 4th.
It's in a static image. They so easily could have just edited it in like whatever photo program they were using back in the mid 90s and then reattached it to the game. Like, yep. That's not a huge problem. That's not like a weird little thing that's stuck in some dialogue 50 hours into the game, you know? Nope.
Very confusing.
No, very confusing. Well, we were talking about a different ruling figure in the lands of Tamriel today. This is part of our year 3 adventure. This is our official. Is this our official first episode of the year? Is that how this worked? I don't know.
So.
I think it might be.
This is the first one. Yeah, because the last one was on New Year's Eve, so that doesn't count.
Yeah, that doesn't count. So, it came out during this year, but it was recorded before the year. But welcome to year 3. Holy crap. Year 3 of the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. And this year we are kicking this off with some more character story lore segments, I guess you could say. And to start this off, we're going to be diving into the lore behind Jorunn the Skald-King. And we'll be taking a look at some of the different leaders in Elder Scrolls Online and maybe even some of the other characters in Elder Scrolls Online because we have so much information about these people. And you come across them in the games, but oftentimes you don't take the time to read the book about them or whatever. And there's a lot there to know. So that's where we're diving in today. And I subtitled this Jorunn the Skald-King, Badass Bard King. He is by my definition a badass Bard King after digging into the research about this. I also was a little bit confused at first because, Lotus, do you know what the word scald means? Have you ever heard the word scald before?
So I've heard it, but honestly, prior to its relation to Elder Scrolls on whole, I had never really heard it in context of anything. Yeah, it was like scald, like some like scalding water. What does that mean? What is this? Right. I was like, yeah, all right.
I was like, I don't understand. Like, how does this word make any sense? It turns out scald is from ancient Scandinavia, and it means a composer or reciter of poems honoring heroes and their deeds. Now that makes a whole lot more sense because, as we're about to learn, Jorunn was a bard. That was his trade,
right? And
maybe that's something to do with his voice and the way he says the sing-songy things when he talks. I don't know, maybe. But here, let's just dig into it. So, where did he come from? So, of course, he came from. He was birthed, right, as most human beings, or I guess Nords are in this case.
Yeah, I would assume most Nords would come into creation like that. Yeah.
Yes, that's usually how people are brought into the world. He was born to Queen Mabyar. Mabyar? Maybe?
I always said Mabyar, yeah.
Yeah, it's with a J.
I feel like they do say it in-game, but I don't specifically remember. I think Mabyar is fine.
Yeah, Mabyar. She's Queen Mabyar flame hair. So I'm assuming that we know what color her hair is. Probably red. And most of this information I'm about to get into actually comes from the book Jorunn The Skald-King. And before we get into the details of this, because I kind of jumped the gun with the queen part there, we have to keep in mind that the books in the games are written from the perspectives of specific authors. And the perspective of an author is going to color the information in that book, just like in the real world. We've talked about this before, unreliable narrators and all that. Well, this book is written about a king of the Nords from the perspective of another Nord who was probably commissioned to write the book. And you see where this is going. So this isn't necessarily going to be the hard and fast truth of everything. It's going to be a perception of a thing by somebody with a very specific perspective. So let's get into it. So Queen Mabyar, let's get into her a little bit. Queen Mabyar was the queen of Eastern Skyrim who ruled Windhelm. She was one of the wearers of the crown of Freitas. The crown of Freitas is one of two crowns that up until this time had been worn by rulers in Skyrim. This was the second. The first one, there's a whole history around it. It was set aside. They were using the second crown. And this also goes to show that she was the actual ruler. So go Nords for being pro-feminist here. Congratulations. Yep. You know, ladies leading and ruling. She had 3 children. The first child was Princess Nirnhild, her eldest and presumed heir, because in the Nordic tradition, women could be rulers, just like she was. And then Jorunn the Skald Prince and Fildgor. Why would you name your son Fildgor? Fildgor, the strong prince.
There's many questions with the naming conventions.
Yes, I love these. And Mabyar and Nirnhild were killed by the Akaviri invaders in Windhelm, though they reportedly went down fighting. So in Nordic tradition, even the women fight until the bitter end. There's no pushover. Women, you know.
Yeah, they're essentially shield maidens of Vikings.
Yes.
Like, they're just the equivalent of... the gender does not matter to their fighting style. It's just, yep, you're a Nord, get out there and fight. That's
you have an arm, you can wield a blade, go, fight. Yes.
Exactly.
Right. So as you're going to find out, Joran then leads the Nords into avenging their deaths. So let's talk about his early life. Early life, he didn't expect to be king. He was the second born into the family. He, like many second borns, he had to find his own way, right? He had to come up with what kind of thing he can do to make his way in the world and be popular and successful and all of that without necessarily assuming that he's going to become king. But then eventually had to learn to fight the hard way. So according to the book, it says Joran grew up believing their elder sister, Nirnhild, was fated to take the throne, and as such became a singer and did quite a bit of traveling. He showed a rare talent as a singer, highly prized among the Nords, and was eventually dubbed the Skald-King for his singing and poetry of Skyrim, or the Skald Prince of Skyrim was his first title. However, his mother and sister were killed in an Akaviri invasion, and this connects back through to some of the events happening just before the time of the Elder Scrolls Online, in that the Akaviri invaders were fought back and removed from Tamriel. And this happened just before the events of Elder Scrolls Online. There's lots of quests about these events, about pushing these Akaviris back. And then there's even Akaviri spirits and things all over the place. Lotus?
Yeah. All this, was kind of the basis for around how the Ebonheart Pact formation even comes about. Like their side in this war is related to this Akaviri invasion. So it's directly like goes into the game that has him and starts ESO. For those of you who actually play Elder Scrolls Online, this is pretty much the end of his line, or I guess his superiors, I guess, in the family.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. As they're eliminated in battle, Elder Scrolls Online starts and he comes into power pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Akaviri, these were foreign invaders. They were not from Tamriel. They were from the continent over to the east. So they were pushed back out of Tamriel. He led the Norse to victory against the invaders and took a new life as High King of Eastern Skyrim. So Jorn was in Riften when the Akaviri of Dur Kamal assaulted the northeast coast of Skyrim in the second era of 572. Jorunn and his closest comrades, the Pack of Bards. Can you imagine being part of a group called the Pack of Bards? We are the Pack of Bards. We sing and walk all day. You know, they're probably like Sir Robin's minstrel from Monty
Lord.
Python.
Yeah. Very threatening.
Very, very threatening. Well, in this case, they actually were, because they fought their way up to the coast of Windhelm, arriving just in time to see its gates breached by the Akaviri. Jorunn hurled himself into the fray, but was unable to prevent the fall of the city and the slaying of his mother and sister, who both went down fighting. Can you imagine? One of the things I love doing when I take a look at the lore is putting myself in the position of the people in the games and the people the stories are about. Can you imagine, like, the impetus to do this? And we're going to talk about this a little bit more in a little bit, but Jorunn was not necessarily a trained warrior the same way some of these other people were. I mean, I'm sure they're all given swords and they're all taught how to wield an axe and how to use them and things. But at the same time, he spent most of his time as a bard. He was somebody who wanted a kinder, simpler life. And he comes to find out that the Akaviri are invading and assaulting Windhelm, where his mother and his older sister are. And he gets to the gates and tries to bust into the city in order to save them and protect them, and then fails. That's gotta hold some weight. That's the kind of thing that affects your personality, changes the path of your life, not just the events that happen to, you know, his mother and his sister dying, but the fact that, like, he was there, he was this close, and had they had more forces available, may have been able to save her in that situation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a tough situation. So some things change here with Jorunn's perspective on this and what he decides to do. So he was wounded from this conflict and clearly devastated from the death of his loved ones, and was barely able to escape alive. They were overwhelmed by the Akaviri invaders. One legend says he decided to appeal to the Greybeards of High Hrothgar for aid. Now remember, these are legends, but this may or may not have happened. They taught him a shout to summon a hero from Sovngarde. How cool is this? This ties into our experience from playing the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, right?
That's a pretty good shout.
Yeah, that's a powerful shout.
Yeah.
I don't know do you remember if we summon anything from Sovngarde specifically? I know we can summon, like, ghost creatures and stuff.
Well, actually, you can eventually, I came from the expansion Dawnguard, I believe, but you could summon, was it Dunavir? After this, after you're in the Soul Karen.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's coming back to me.
You can summon. I think his name was Dunavir, but you can summon that dragon, and there is. I don't believe it's a shout. I think it might be the racial, like one of the racial skills for Nords. Mm-hmm. But I think you can summon an ancestor like ghost as well, or maybe that's Dunmer.
I don't know if that's Nords.
That actually might be Dunmer. I might be mistaken. But either way, I don't think that was a shout. But I assume just from other games. Okay, that is Dunmer. All right, that's okay.
Fragile says that's Dunmer. I didn't think that was Nord.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, I would assume that it's just like, instead of that being a racial bonus, you can just, I don't know, scream and somebody pops up to hang out with you. But yeah, having the dragon version would be pretty impressive. I would be a big fan of that.
Yeah, but summoning a hero from Sovngarde is still not bad.
Still good.
You know,
still good.
Undead hero warrior coming to fight by your side is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's not like he's gonna ever run away in fear. He's already been in Sovngarde. Worst case scenario, he goes back. Like,
right. Oh, I gotta go back home. See you later. Yeah, I need. So I've been playing the Naked Wizard playthrough on Skyrim VR, and I hope you guys have been enjoying the playthroughs. I've been releasing them on the podcast feed. But I'm going to have to look for this to see what I can find when it comes to shouts and things that you can get. Because I didn't discover all of them. That wasn't ever something I accomplished in Skyrim. Maybe that should be my next goal after I beat the game. All right, so let's get to it. So he was able to use the shout to summon Wolfhearth, the Ash King, to fight by his side, now claiming the title Skald-King, because of course he was the next in line to take the crown. Another account credits Amalexia with summoning the Ash King. So it seems like, being that there are two different accounts of the Ash King being summoned, that maybe we can at least believe that that part is true, and that the different accounts came up from different people with different perspectives as to how that happened. So sometimes that's how this stuff comes about in the stories. Regardless, Wolfhearth and Joran rallied the Nords of Eastern Skyrim, mustering an army from the Rift and the outer regions of Eastmarch, which heavily fortified Riften. Dur Kamal was convinced to bypass the city and march on Mournhold, assuming that the Nords would be glad to see him go. So this is where the mistake was made. That choice was fatal. Joran and Wolfhearth led their army in pursuit of the Akaviri force, and a Nordic army entered Morrowind for the first time since the Battle of Red Mountain. So this was a historic moment. The Nords had not returned to Morrowind since the Battle of Red Mountain, which was the most historic event in that part of the world since forever, basically. Mm-hmm. The Akaviri army was caught in Stonefalls between the Nords and a Dunmer legion led by Amalexia. Aided by the surprise intervention of a phalanx of Argonian shellbacks led by a trio of battle mages, the coalition broke the Akaviri line and drove them into the sea, where they drowned by the thousands. Death by water. That sucks. Can you imagine having all the armor and stuff on you?
That's going to be a rough way to go. It's like, oh, if I only wasn't so well prepared, you just sink down
I'm
the bottom.
too prepared. I didn't expect to fight tide water.
Yep. Talk about your all-time biggest backfires on that one.
Yeah. But I mean, it's tactically a very smart thing to do. You come across a bunch of well-armed people, soldiers, and we've seen the Akaviri battle armor. It's made it's hefty stuff, and you drive them into the sea, and they can't get out of the sea because you've just pushed them back in. They all drown. Plus
you wouldn't want to be giving up all that cool armor because it's got a really neat look to it.
Right. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die in my cool armor.
I'm taking it with me.
I'm taking it with me. My bloated, swollen body and all. So the Ash King, his purpose fulfilled, returned to Sovngarde. In Windhelm, 3 weeks later, Joran was crowned High King in the throne room of the Palace of Kings. And thus we get the history of Jorunn The Skald-King. So this is a lot of stuff I wasn't really aware of until I really started digging into this. I mean, little pieces of it make sense from the things that I played in game, but I didn't pay enough attention to that stuff, it seems, because this is really pretty freaking cool.
Yes. Also, just because of my sort of OCD, making sure that things are at least as correct as I can make them.
Sure. Yeah.
Make me very uncomfortable if it's not. So summoning Dunavir is a shout from Skyrim. We were discussing what the potentials were. Mm-hmm. And apparently there was also a version where you didn't summon somebody from Sovngarde, but there is one called Phantom Form, which is used by the Greybeards to spawn a spectral clone of themselves. However, it was removed from the game, apparently. Like you can't get it. It can only be done by the Greybeards.
Oh,
so
wow.
Yep. So this is a unique unique shout, theoretically, that Joran would have that we did not have in Skyrim.
Mm-hmm. I like that there's debate, well, it wasn't a shout, it was Amalexia. Would Amalexia have the power to summon a Nord from Sovngarde? How does that make sense? I
don't know.
That seems out of her realm,
Yeah, that seems unlikely. I don't know. The Tribunal has some interesting powers, but
it would make more sense if it was a Dunmer, like to bring a Dunmer hero back and send him to Joran's side in order to combine their armies, and that would make sense. But
right. But yeah, I can't imagine it was somehow her. It must have just been something that it must have just been a shout. That I don't know. Seems like a good shout. Seems like a very good shout.
Some Dunmer later was like, we have to take credit for that. This is what happened.
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break when we go to the middle of the show, and we will be back for the second half of this episode where we will talk about our perspectives of what it would be like to be in this situation ourselves. So hold on. We'll be right back.
The skies are marked with numberless sparks, each a fire and every one a sign.
All right. Welcome to the middle of the show. And thank you very, 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 how many times can I say very much for our patrons. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you for being part of this and supporting the show. And if you haven't already checked out the Patreon, go check it out. You can get ad-free episodes. You can get episodes a day early. You can get all sorts of great stuff just with a few bucks a month in order to help support the show. And that also helps us keep doing the show, which is absolutely crucial, to be honest, because this is how I make my living now. And I'm still trying to, replace all the income that I normally would have through a full-time job, but I'm getting closer and closer. And our patrons help make that possible every single month. So thank you very, very much. Also, I need to call out our tier 5 patron, Noodle Al Dente. I'm going to be doing this in the middle of the episodes now instead of the end, but he is a tier 5 patron, which means he's a Daedric prince of some sort, and he has the power to be called out on every single episode. So thank you, Noodle Al Dente. You are amazing. And thank you to all of our other patrons. And if you would like to join us at the end of this month, then you just have to sign up as a tier 4 patron. You can do it one time, or you can do it multiple times, and come join us and talk about whatever lore is out there. I know we got some heat from our faction conversation because some of our patrons who are tier 4 patrons couldn't make it, and they were not part of the same club that we are, I guess.
It's true.
They seem to think that the Daggerfall Covenant is better for some reason.
That's strange.
Well, we might have to have a debate this month.
We gave them credit as the silver medal of Tamriel. I mean, what more do they want?
We did. I don't know. Maybe they'll have to defend themselves at the end of this month. Yep. We'll see how that goes. But thank you again to all of our patrons. You guys are amazing.
Yes, you're entirely brilliant. Conquering madness and all that. Blah, 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 blah.
Sheogorth doesn't seem to be as impressed as I am. Lotus, let's talk about... So my perspective here shifts, having known this background for Jorunn the Skald-King, because he seems so aloof in the game. He seems so like, we talked about it a week or two ago. It just seems like, do my thing, and he's a Nord, but he seems more like the drinking buddy kind of Nord, and less of the like, we must band together and destroy the enemy kind of Nord.
Yeah, it's charge into battle and blah 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 blah. So I will agree with that. He almost seems like he's the odd one out in the family when you look at the dynamic of the other ones. His mother, his sister, and his brother all seemed much more gung-ho into like, all right, let's do this. It's wartime. And he was like, I want to sing songs at school.
It brings me back to Monty Python again with the gay prince who's just, I just want to sing. And his father's like, no, none of that. Yeah.
Yep. So he just seems like the mellow one in the family comparatively. And leadership was kind of just thrown in his lap more than like he's an ambitious person who is aiming to like, okay, I want to lead, I want to do this. It's like, no, it's just your family was eliminated and ta-da, here you go, deal with this. And on the flip side, he is obviously a capable fighter. I mean, at the Battle of Windhelm, and he's not like afraid to go into combat, but it's not obviously what his goals are. As well as throughout Elder Scrolls Online, the other two leaders want their position. Mm-hmm. He wants the pact to basically solidify like their freedoms from everybody else and kind of stop the issues there, but it's much less about like, I want to lead you guys or do any of that. It's more of, I'm going to do this until we're done, and that's fine. And
right.
It goes further without, we're not going to dip into spoilers because it's the most recent expansion. But in Markarth, you can interact with Joran even more. You could in Greymoor, but it's even more so in points in Markarth. And it's very apparent that he is much more concerned about helping the faction than furthering his claim to anything whatsoever. Which is a very different leadership quality than you tend to see, at least otherwise. So he's definitely got a very unique stance, which I think stems from his background. Like you said, it's like he wasn't bred to be a fighter or any of this. It was kind of just, this is what I need to do, and now I'm stuck with this leadership role because there's no one else that can do it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the saying that the people who we least want to lead are the ones who want it the most. You know, because he's not by any means a bad leader. He's not a lazy leader. He steps up and does what he needs to do when he needs to. You know, and he starts his leadership in exactly that same way. Well, my mother and my sister were killed. I was almost killed, but I'm gonna heal back up. I'm gonna form an army, and we're gonna go kick these guys' asses into the sea, and then I'm gonna go back to my kingdom and let everyone chill out for a while. You know, like, yeah, it seems like it comes down to the things you value. When you value power, when you value control, those are the leaders you have to be worried about, because they're going to exploit everybody underneath them and everybody in their way to get that power. Somebody like Joran, he wants to live a joyful, happy life doing the things that he loves. Like, I get the perspective that if he had spent till the end of his days as part of this pack of bards, singing and performing and drinking and you know, carousing with the locals and doing his thing, he would have been totally fine. That was the life he wanted, but he couldn't get that. So now he has to step up and do the thing. And this so easily could turn into the perspective, the story that we get so many times of the leader who doesn't want to be a leader, who's just a lazy ass, you know, and just can't step up to it. But that's not Joran. Joran, he's very capable. He's able to do what he needs to when he needs to. But for the most part, he'd rather just not.
Exactly. It's more of a responsibility than an ambition. So I don't know. It's one of the things that I had mentioned on our Alliance episode where we did that's one of the things I liked about him, is that it's like, he'll do what needs to be done, but at the same time, he's not looking for new fights to start. It's just, got to just kind of manage what I'm managing and keep things in check as best as it's possible. I liked that perspective that he has. And, you know, it seems like the intention there is to, even in the cases of, you know, some of the Dunmer / Argonian conflicts, the idea is to eventually fix everything. But again, you got to pick your battles to start with. And when you're getting attacked by 2 invaders, you know, with the Daggerfall Covenant and the Aldmeri Dominion with the Three Banners War, you can tell that the whole slavery issue and stuff like that has kind of been bumped to the back burner. But he actually has some dialogue that you can find in game where he kind of hints at the fact that it's like, we need to deal with this too, but we need to like be alive first in order to deal with that. Because if we all get killed by one of the invaders, it doesn't matter if we had slavery because we're dead. Right.
Priorities.
But so it's like I said, it's just a very interesting dynamic when you think of a king, that it's just like, oh, you're not doing this because you want it necessarily, and you're not just inheriting it and then resting on your laurels of like, hey, whatever, I'm the king. This is what I was born to do. I'm just going to do it. And by do it, I mean, I'm just going to laze around and make you people do everything.
Right. You know, I think there's something to be said about somebody who's has to, for responsibility reasons, do things that naturally fall against their nature, but are able to do so and follow through with it. I think that there's honor in that. I don't know if that's the right phrase, but there is, it's respectable, because it's kind of like the Parthenax thing of like fighting against your urges, your natural urges, in order to do something better with yourself. It's not to the same scale as something like Parthenax, going from evil dragon to savior of humans, you know, but there's, I think, like, talking real world situation, like I can resonate with this from my perspective, in that almost every job that I've ever had, I felt like I've had to put on a costume and be somebody I genuinely am not, or I wouldn't choose to be, other than the fact that I get paid to do that thing. Does that make sense?
Right.
And so you kind of, every morning you got to get up, you got to pull yourself up from your own bootstraps, you got to get dressed, you got to put on your outfit, you got to put on your smiley face, and you got to go do your job. And this is crappy jobs that paid nothing, and this is really good jobs that paid really well, and every job in between. But I never quite felt like I was being myself, right? And yet you do that because it's your responsibility. You do that because you have to provide for your family or your kingdom or whatever. And at the end of the day, you get to go back and do the things that you want to enjoy, but because you took care of the things you needed to do. And there's something very honorable about that. There's like, it is a burden. It is a responsibility, but you keep doing it even though you need to. Have you ever felt like that? Or do you feel like you fit your job?
In my specific situation, it's kind of weird because I run my own business.
Right. So does that feel more naturally part of you because you run your own business?
It's kind of funny. I mean, luckily I've never run into a situation like being morally opposed to somebody like wanting to, like, I don't know how you morally oppose what I do, but like, but like in a situation I will work. I guess the best way I can explain this is kind of hard to like word, I guess. But like when I've had anybody working for me that does a terrible job at what they're doing, which is not common, but it's definitely happened. Mm-hmm. I have had situations where I'm like, okay, they're working for me. This is a reflection of me. I need to kind of make this better because it's on me, as it was my choice to hire this person to help me type of deal.
Right. I am ultimately responsible for this.
Yeah. So there have been situations like that where I've been like, oh God, okay, I need to go out of my way to specifically do this to make this better. Even when it's a situation I'm like, well, why are we in this mess to begin with? But I need, now I need to fix it. More often than not, that's not really a thing, but I guess I could relate to that in the way that it's like, yeah, sometimes I kind of do need to do that, but I also try to run it so that, you know, I get done and paid what I need to live and minimize the amount of problems and make, you know, my clientele happy and everything like that. But yeah, I guess actually when you've got management of others under your belt, it is sometimes required that it's like, okay, I need to either apologize for something that I didn't even do, or I need to fix something that I didn't screw up to begin with. It's a lot easier when you make a mistake and it's like, oh, I need to fix this because I screwed this up. It's awkward to need to fix something somebody else did. Then it's a very uncomfortable feeling.
And it's like,
it is.
Now I got to do this other thing I didn't even want to have to do.
Right.
I hired you to do it the first time. Now I still have to do it. I'm double paying for you, basically.
Yeah. So it's definitely a mixed bag. But then you also get, you know, from the point of royalty, not that owning your business is a royalty, but
it has to do with leadership and ownership of the thing. Sure.
You get the benefit of, you know, if the schedule doesn't work for me, well, I'm not going to fire myself. You know what I mean? It's like there, you do get perks to go along with the hassles. So the idea, I assume, when it comes to like kingdoms and stuff like that, is like, okay, yes, they're treated incredibly well. And in terms of this, you have like servants doing stuff for you and all these things, and you live in a castle, and that's supposed to kind of balance out the amount of problematic things you have to deal with.
And the responsibility of it all.
Right. Yeah. And when you have a balance, I think that means you're leading well. If it's very heavily tilted in, you know, you're taking as much from the kingdom as possible, you're oppressing everybody so that you can have more wealth, and you've got all these servants and slaves or whatever horrible things you're doing. And then the scales are tilted way too much toward, you know, you've got a maniacal ruler.
Right.
And in the other situation, how well can you do your job if you're like, oh, well, I can't have any luxuries for myself, I'm going to live like a peasant. And it's like, okay, well, it's going to be kind of hard to like conduct all this stuff if you're sleeping out in the pens with piggies and stuff like that. It's like, that's and probably not going to be. Yeah,
the respect of other rulers and the people underneath you is hard to hold.
It's reaching that balance, I think, that's important.
So do you identify with Joran of all the rulers that...
Well, it's kind of funny now you say it. I mean, I guess maybe that's why I like the Evanhart Pact so much, is just like, I like his. I wouldn't consider myself overly ambitious. I like to do enough of something that it's like, okay, this worked out how I wanted it to be. But I'm not one of those people who's constantly striving for like, no, I need to be more than this and more than this and more. So maybe I just like, maybe I do relate to the idea of Joran.
Yeah.
Enough that's why I like the Ebonheart Pact, and that's why I'm like, yeah, Joran's a goof, and he usually seems like he's drunk, but it's like, I don't know, it seems like he's pretty much like on point and good for the job.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, I think I mean I still think he's a good ruler. I think he's
yeah, he is.
He's a good guy. Like, and when it comes to rulers, they come in certain kinds of flavors, and I think that might be about as good as it gets most of the time. So, what else are you going to ask for that?
Yeah, I like the end result that the pact is going for, but where one of the other things we had mentioned was most likely if the Ebonheart Pact were to just win the Three Banners War. Okay, that's it. We win the Three Banners War. Like, it's over. The other two sides are hypothetically eliminated. And
Emperor Joran?
There is no way I think he would he'd just be like, yeah, okay, I'm emperor in name. Leave me alone. Everybody just stay peaceful and stop killing and enslaving each other, and we'll all be fine. Because you can tell that would not be his end goal. And the Ebonheart Pact, it wouldn't be the idea of like, well, now the Ebonheart Pact rules. It's like, well, it seems actually more likely that now that it is completed and things are, okay, there's no more Three Banners War. It actually seems like it would be like, okay, well, no need for the Ebonheart Pact anymore. They've served their purpose. They will just disband and people can go back to their lives and not have this huge conflict going on. Whereas the Daggerfall Covenant or the Eldmiri Dominion are much more traditional in the ways that it's like, no, the Eldmiri Dominion would ram it down your throats that it's like, the Dominion rules, like,
oh yeah,
kiss the flag, like, type of deal.
Right. And they would probably set up high elves as in charge of all the other regions of the continent.
Yes, exactly.
The same way that, for example, the Alexander the Great, when he took over the, that part of the world, basically all the leaders of all the lands that he took over were Greeks. And then when he died, all the land got divided among the Greeks who ruled over these other people.
Right. And one of the few exceptions, because people do and what she stands for is good. But okay, you've got Queen Irene from another perspective, which we'll do an episode on her later. But just to touch on the idea of the change, even though she means well, she sees herself as okay, I am royalty, so that's where her stance is. Now, I don't think she necessarily would be like this maniacal monster or anything like that. But it's definitely, that's where her headspace is no, this is what I'm here to do. And same thing with the Daggerfall Covenant and King Emmerich. It's like, no, I'm a king. This is what I do. Actually, King Emmerich's probably the most ambitious of them. Whereas Queen Irene just kind of feels entitled to her station. So it's an interesting mix between the three sides because they all have a very, very different look
motivation
at what their side is. Yeah, with the motivations behind it. Exactly. So
well, we'll have to dig into the other two rulers over the next 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
And I would love to hear anybody else's thoughts on this. Do you identify with Joran? Do you think that he's the right one for the job? Would you rather have one of these other rulers? Oh,
right. Do you think he's not motivated enough?
maybe. There's always more to it than just the stuff that we go over in the episode. So I'd love to hear that stuff. I also would love to hear about other characters from ESO that you would love to dig a little bit more into. Anybody else that you think is really interesting and that you want to know more about. And we can put those on our list for later. Well, Lotus, what else do you have going on before we head out? Anything else to talk about? You finished Arena.
Yeah,
what else
finished
are you doing?
Arena. I am loading up so that my next project, most of what I stream tends to be Elder Scrolls Online or Fallout 76 when I play. But I am installing and prepping for my next classic, which is kind of just this thing that I started a while back where I'm going to go through all of the Elder Scrolls games total and complete them. Instead of going straight into Daggerfall next, my goal is to play Battlespire because it will directly relate to most likely the Gates of Oblivion coming here in Elder Scrolls Online.
Right.
There's a lot of Mehrunes Dagon tie-ins. The clans that we had talked about last time, that when we were talking about them, that the reference points were actually all from Battlespire. So I have no idea what I'm doing in Battlespire. I've barely even seen what that game looks like. And I will not be looking up how to play. The interest is definitely partly streaming these and doing them without knowing what I'm trying to do. So this will be an interesting adventure next, and hopefully as much as fun as I had with Arena, hopefully a little less painful than Arena, because man, that was quite a learning curve. So that's definitely going to be an interesting one, to say the least. But hopefully I can get some neat little lore tidbits that we can use for the show.
Yeah, Fragile Shark says you might want to look up at least the parts that are completely broken.
Yeah,
as with any of these old games. I'm
sure there's a few things that are just like straight up. I mean, had I not found out about that pass wall spell in Arena, I actually encountered a game-breaking glitch, and the only saving grace to it was that spell, where I had to delete walls around the map to get to my objective, because there was a ghost that has a high potential of spawning in a wall where it would block the entryway into the room, and because he's in the wall, you can't fight him and you can't kill him. So if that happens, you have to basically try to reload and hope it fixes itself, or you need pass wall, or you have to restart your game.
That's amazing.
Those were my solutions.
That's amazing.
So
Yep. Classic Bethesda. Yeah.
Classic Bethesda.
As we were talking before in the pre-show, you were saying that it was an intentional troll from the developers at the time.
Yeah. And then, exactly. Then there's other things that are just intentional trolls, where it's like, this is just a dead end. It doesn't go anywhere. And there you go. Feel bad about it. It's like, wow, that's just mean-spirited.
Yep. Well, good luck with all of that. I've been, like I mentioned before, I've been streaming every day during the middle of the day. If you would like to come hang out with me like a coworker while I work on editing stuff and then play games after that, then please feel free to do that. I hope you guys are enjoying the Adventures of Sir Robots. I'm the Naked Wizard. So I've been doing that in VR. That's been a lot of fun. Man, Skyrim VR is so cool. Just seeing everything around you like that. It's just nuts. I may or may not have ordered a new HP Reverb G2 headset, which has like the highest definition VR screen you can possibly get. And it might be here at the end of the month or not, which would be really cool. So I'm super into that. But yeah, I'd love for you guys to come hang out with me at twitch.tv/robotsradio for these shows, these episodes, or during the day while hanging out. A number of you guys are in chat right now who come hang out with me during the day, and I really do appreciate it, having people talk to me. We jam out to like music, work on stuff. I tell you what I'm doing. It's all such a good time. So, well, thanks for coming by, everybody. Lotus, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, should we do, which should we do? Should we do for next week? Should we do, what's his face? Emmerich?
Let's save the contentious one for the end. We'll do Emmerich next.
Yeah, we'll do Emmerich next. Okay.
Emmerich next, and then the most divisive side, at least in any communities that I'm part of. People either love him or they hate him.
That's true. All right, we'll do that next time. And until next time, sing some songs, drink some beer, and if you've got to, kick your enemy off into the sea, then do that too. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Thanks for listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. If you have something you'd like to contribute to the show, please reach out to us at elderscrollslorecast@gmail.com or on Twitter @ESO Lorecast. I really appreciate you listening, and I'd love to hear from you soon.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.